Hi, thank you for joining us. I'm Sami Ozturk, Solutions Specialist at Ultima.
Hi, and I'm Mark Elliott, one of Ultima's Solutions Architects.
So today we're going to be covering why you should consider Azure as part of your future Citrix architecture. Ultima has partnered with Microsoft and Citrix to help deliver our desktop and application workloads in the most effective way possible. And we've been delivering business solutions now for over 25 years. Microsoft and Citrix have recently strengthened their relationship, and we are very excited by the joint approach both vendors are taking as we venture into the public cloud era of computing.
Yeah, we help our customers by proving the capability of this technology and demonstrating the value of it to the business. So I just want to start off by covering some of the benefits of the cloud. Most CXOs are already well aware of the benefits of the cloud. They know it gives them the agility and the scalability to respond to the changing demands of, which is really important when trying to maintain a competitive advantage. So also with an increasingly mobile workforce, services can be delivered to your users whenever and wherever they need them, but still providing the necessary protection and security for your assets. So we have these benefits, but many organizations are facing constant challenges as well. Whether that be trying to manage geographically dispersed sites with additional infrastructure and the operational overhead that this presents. We're also seeing challenges around mergers and acquisitions. So when we're looking at these mergers and acquisitions, you've got two separate sets of internal systems that it's often a challenge to try and integrate these without any disruption. Another challenge is around the legacy systems that won't run on modern operating systems. If they're business critical and can't be redeveloped or upgraded, then how are you going to deal with that? So really, the challenge for the CXO and for your business is, how do you transition to the cloud seamlessly and securely and be confident that you're doing it the right way?
As Mark was saying, we've got these legacy applications now, and they could be holding you back from a Windows 10 deployment. And the question is, how do we deliver these if they are important to the business and you're not ready to migrate away from them? So what we can do is package those up in a Citrix layer and deliver them securely to anywhere around the globe. And you can still ensure that you've got the same productivity without having to worry about that when doing something like a migration to Windows 10. We've also got scenarios where we want users to be working securely from a remote location, so that you may want to be trying to get people more mobile and you want them to maybe work from home at some point, as many people do nowadays. So you can do this without having to worry what's on their device. Do they have any malware that you're not aware of? And you can just be confident in the way that the application's delivered without having to invest in setting up someone at home. You've also got the scenario where we have chatty applications, where these are apps that they have a low latency is required for the front end to the back end server, and therefore it's hard to make that application mobile. So what we can do is package it up nice and close, put it within the same location, wherever that may be, and deliver that to a user virtually through Citrix.
Right, so that's some of the benefits. Now, we've got a few options when we're looking at Citrix in Azure. Just before we start talking and going into those, I just wanted to talk about some of the architecture of a Citrix model, which will help us define where and where these locations or where these services will be placed. So what we normally do is we will split up a Citrix architecture into what we call the control layer and the resource layer. We also have a receiver as well, which is the access method. So basically, the control layer will be the brokering service of the architecture. So this is how users can connect and access the resources of the Citrix environment. So it will be doing things like brokering and handling the connections. We also then have the resource layer. Now the resource layer is effectively the workers. So we call these the workloads, the traditional XenApp servers that the applications will be published on, or the desktops will be delivered. And then obviously we need to access those, so we do that through traditionally through the Citrix receiver, which is an endpoint client, which can either be a full client or delivered via a web service. So when we start talking about Citrix in Azure, there's a few ways we can do it, and it really depends on the use cases. So if we start, we have what we call the extend model. Now with the extend model, we have, this is generally for existing customers that already have an on-premises Citrix environment. They may have their workloads and their resource layer and control layer both on premises. And what we can do is we can move or build out the workloads into Azure. So this may be for a burst capability or for DR. So for example, with the burst capability, this could be as part of when you've got these mergers and acquisitions where you have to quickly bring up some new workloads, some new published applications or desktops to be able to quickly deliver those to your users. And the other option, as I just mentioned, was disaster recovery. With disaster recovery, what we can do is we can actually have the workloads in Azure sitting idle waiting for a disaster recovery scenario.
That's good. So we can effectively get the benefits of DR without having to invest up front in the disaster recovery infrastructure. And I guess in Azure, you're only paying for what? Storage and a bit of networking, and maybe a few virtual machines just to keep the connectivity going and sort of endpoint. But in reality, all of your resource workloads, they can be off. And in Azure, as we know, we only pay per second. So we've got that instant benefit right there for DR.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, that's the real benefit, and it's a really cost-effective way of delivering DR by having these. You're not paying for the environment while it's not being in use. So that's where we're seeing a lot of people just beginning their journey into the cloud. This is a great use case for that. The next option that we want to talk about is what we call the host model. Now, the host model is really effectively using the infrastructure as a service capabilities of Azure, and by moving all your workloads and control layer into the Azure tenant, so your Azure tenant. Now in this scenario, this could be in situations, for example, that your company's adopting a cloud-first approach, where you're moving all your workloads, so your back-end application servers and everything is starting to move up into the cloud. Often what we're seeing is a first step into the cloud is using the infrastructure as a service, and then in the background we're often looking at redeveloping and using the PaaS and some of the higher end features of the Azure tenant. So what we're seeing here is, as Sami mentioned before around the chatty apps, if you're going to have back-end services in Azure, then it really makes sense to have your front end, so your workloads also running from Azure. Removes any hardware infrastructure costs on premises, and you've also got the benefit of using your existing licensing, so there's no additional Citrix licensing to be able to run these workloads in Azure. Finally, we've got the third method, which is the Citrix Cloud Service. Now, Citrix Cloud is a service offered by Citrix, where effectively the control plane or the control layer is fully managed by Citrix in the cloud. So they have their own Azure infrastructure where they will be delivering that control layer for you. So they manage that, and then you will just be responsible for your workloads. Now those workloads could be on Azure or could be on premises. So the beauty of that is within the Citrix control layer, Citrix will be continually responsible for that, and they're adopting a Windows as a service type of evergreen approach. So what they're looking to do is continually to drive in innovation and new features and deploy them at scale quickly and with a lot of agility. So by doing that, and by coming on board with the Citrix Cloud Service, you're actually going to be able to make use of those innovative features as soon as they're released.
I guess we've got the added benefit of Microsoft's Azure regions globally. So we've got over 32 now. So in theory, you've now got the ability to pump desktops and applications out anywhere in the world and still maintain that solid connectivity that you'd expect.
Yeah, that's totally right. So that's one of the real benefits of this Citrix Cloud model, is that for these geographically dispersed locations or sites, where traditionally you may have had to have, for example, you may have a Citrix site in the US, one in the UK, and one in somewhere in Asia Pacific, and they would have to be managed completely separately. So what Citrix Cloud can do is bring those all under one management plane, one management umbrella. You don't have the limitations of the latency because of the slightly different architecture of the Citrix cloud service. It uses the concept of a cloud connector, which is local. So any of your workload resources will connect to the connector, which is on their local network, and then that will then be able to communicate with the Citrix cloud service. So it's a real benefit when you're looking at those geographically dispersed scenarios. Yeah. Now, one of the things with the Citrix cloud is that it's a different subscription model. It is a subscription model. It's a different licensing model. So what we're seeing there is traditionally you would have a perpetual license, whereas when you move to Citrix Cloud, it's an annual subscription.
Thanks, Mark. So we've partnered with Microsoft and Citrix to put together what we call a Cloud Value Workshop. So this is your opportunity to get in front of the specialists and ask any questions around what we've discussed today. It's also your chance to discuss your actual environment and see maybe how yours may vary. Everyone's got a different environment. So therefore, if you want to come along, please get in touch with us. You can call us on our contact number, or you can get in touch with us by email at cloud@ultima.com. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.